afternoon, poppers. Welcome to Pop-Up Life with Mountain Q. Today's video we're going to be going over the digital thermostat modification and also how to run your rooftop air conditioner off of that same thermostat. Before we start, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below along with the bell to make sure you're notified of any of my new videos that come out, and give me a thumbs up on the like before we get out of here. Before we get started though, I do want to say, if you're not familiar with electrical work, or possibly a licensed electrician, I don't suggest you getting in here and doing the work on your own. Either get help from somebody that is experienced or licensed, or take the information that you get and have them to do the installation for you. This is just a kind of a heads up to what I did on mine. I do have a little experience in the past with it, and I just wanted to share that in case it might work out for somebody else. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been noticing, I've been getting a lot of posts out there with, why is my air conditioner freezing up? Why am I getting so cold at night? Does it only have on and off with a compressor? Does the whole thing not turn off? Unfortunately, rooftop ACs on these pop-ups, they don't shut completely off. The compressor will turn off and it'll stop producing the cold air, but if it's cool outside, it's still going to be blowing cold air in on you. Which I woke up myself, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, freezing to death because it had cooled off outside, but the fan's still blowing. What you'll also notice is when you get into the cooler climates in North Georgia, like where we live, and you've got some humidity along with those temperatures, the coils will tend to freeze up if you don't have it on the high fan setting. The moisture gets in there, the slow speed of the air moving across the coil, it allows that moisture to freeze on the coils. So then you have to thaw it out, start all over. I kept trying to figure out, there's got to be a way to set my air conditioner up to where it's just going to turn off completely. When it reaches the temperature I want, it'll turn off, and then when it warms up, it'll turn back on, just like in my house. So I got to doing some internet search, some Google searches, and YouTube. Found a pretty good modification, and I wanted to share something that I've done on my camper. Not suggesting you go out and do it on your own unless you have knowledge or a licensed electrician. If it's something you like and you want it done and you've got the knowledge, then go for it. If not, you can take that information to somebody who is knowledgeable or licensed and have them do it for you. But like I said, just got tired of the whole freezing up or getting cold at night. So in the description below, you're going to notice that I've got a link to the thermostat that I used and the 110 volt relay coil that I used. There's a toggle switch that can be used if you're using the rooftop AC unit with the heat strips in it. It's just a simple 12 volt on off single pole. So that you can get any part store, but the other two, the relay and the thermostat, I'm going to include those in on the description so that you'll have an idea of what you need to order there. So with that, let's get on down here and look at the wiring and see what we've got. So the thermostat that I used on this project is the Honeywell home thermostat. I got it from Home Depot. You can pick it up at, I believe, Ace Hardware, Amazon. That's the one I'll link you where I've got mine from. So the way the thermostat wiring works is your R is the power in, your W is the demand for heat, and your Y is the demand for air conditioning. So again, the coloring is going to be a little bit off on mine, or you may have to put your own wiring in on yours also. But what you're going to do is take the 12 volt positive lead, 12 volt hot that comes from your furnace, and you're going to take that to the R terminal. Now this particular thermostat had a jumper from the R to the RC. That jump has to be there for this thermostat to operate. But due to the tightness in these terminals, I had to move it over here, and we'll discuss that, and make my own jump from the R to RC here. So I brought my 12 volt positive and I put it onto the R terminal. And then on the W terminal, I came out to the wire coming from the thermostat, which calls for demand for heat, so that the furnace will know when to turn on. If you're using the heat strips in your rooftop air conditioner, when you come out off of this W, you're going to put in that 12 volt on off single switch. That's going to allow you to cut the furnace out of the system during the AC summer months. I'll explain that a little bit more here in just a moment, but there's the 12 volt switch on off that I installed. Again, that goes on the demand for heat wire that comes out of the W terminal. On the Y terminal, the call for air conditioning. Now that wire, I ran a 16 gauge wire. It comes out of that Y terminal and it comes over to the 110 coil relay that I was telling you about. On the 110 coil relay, that positive call for air conditioning is going to go to the positive side of the 12 volt side of the relay. You're going to take the ground side, and if you're installing near your converter, you should have a good ground that you can tap into. On my 2008 1906 Viking camper, it had an electrical box in it for the junction of the 110 coming out of the converter to power the rooftop air conditioning, which this was the factory cord for the air conditioning. If you don't have the box in yours, I'd strongly recommend when you make these splices to put that box in to keep that wiring safe. So what I did is I disconnected the power side of that 110 coming from the converter, and I brought from the power side of it to the number 1 side of the coil relay. Coming back out of the number 2 side, that power wire comes over and it splices back in, connects back in to that power cable that comes from your rooftop AC. So you're basically just splicing into the middle of the power wire that comes out of that converter and up to the rooftop unit. So what's going to happen is when that thermostat calls through that Y terminal for air conditioning, it's going to power up this relay, which is going to close this switch and allow power to run up to your rooftop unit. Now the reason that we put that toggle switch in is because when you are in the summer months, but you also have the heat strips that you're wanting to use, you have to have the W and the Y jumped across each other. Because in the winter, when you're coming out of the W, but you want to use your rooftop AC on the heat strips, you're also going to power up that coil to turn power onto the unit on top of the roof. So by jumping that though, every time the air conditioner turns on, the furnace is going to turn on. So you put the on-off switch on that W wire so that during the summer months when the thermostat calls for air conditioning out of that Y wire, which is also jumped and going to send power through the W, you can turn that switch to the off position and the furnace will not get the call for heat and turn on. So let me get it buttoned up and we'll go through controlling the system once we've got it all installed. So now to operate the system, what we're going to do is we're going to take our power selector, we're going to put it on high cool. Our thermostat is going to be on the coolest setting. So now when you come over, the unit in the cool position and set your desired temperature, you can hear up top that the rooftop unit has fired up and starting to cool down. Now we'll adjust the temperature to, since it's not going to give it enough time to cool down, we'll go back up, and once it's reached the temperature, the unit's going to turn off. Now that same thing works because in the summertime, again, we've got the switch in the off position. Now we're going to say it's wintertime. We've put our switch in the on position to give power back to the furnace. We've come up, power selector's on heat and on the highest setting. So now when we come over, heat's now on. Rooftop unit's running in the heat strip mode. Now say we've gotten to a point where the heat strips just can't heat the air anymore and we don't want them on. All you do at that point is come back, turn that unit off, and you'll notice down here you can still hear the furnace running. And it works in reverse. If you want the heat strips but you don't want the furnace running yet, turn that switch down, and after its brief cool down period, the furnace will shut off. Okay, so for a quick recap, the wire coming from your furnace, the 12 volt positive or 12 volt hot wire, is going to connect to that R terminal. The W terminal coming out of the thermostat is the return wire, the demand for heat wire that goes back to the furnace. If you're not using heat strips, it goes straight back to the furnace from the thermostat. If you're going to use the heat strips on the rooftop unit, then you'll take it from that W terminal to that 12 volt on-off switch, and then to the demand wire for the furnace. The Y wire, the demand for air conditioning, is going to run to the positive side of the 12 volt side on the coil relay. Ground the negative side, should have a good ground over by your converter. Then you're going to splice or take apart the splice where the 110 line from the converter for powering the air conditioning connects to the factory harness or factory wire for the rooftop unit. You're going to splice that power wire and run from the power side of the converter to the number 1 side of that relay coil. The number 2 side will come out and it'll go into the harness going up to, or the wire going up to, the rooftop AC. Now I used 10 gauge Romex house wire for the 110 splice, and then I've used the 12 volt 16 gauge automotive wire for the Y to the relay coil, just so you'll have an idea of what size wires I used. Now using heat strips, you're going to have to make sure that the W and the Y are jumpered. If you're not using the heat strips, leave the original factory jump on the RRC that came in the thermostat. You can still leave it if you can get in there and put another jump on that W and Y, but just because my fingers being so big, I used the original over on that YW and made my own. So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Again, make sure that you subscribe down below, hit that bell for notification on my upcoming videos. Give me the like, and everybody have a great weekend camping. Send me some pictures. Let me see y'all set up and how much fun you're having. Good evening, and come back and join us at Pop-Up Life at any time.